Mr. Krikorian, you're an advisory board member for Project 2025, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Krikorian, in addition to being a Project 2025 board member, you also run the Center for Immigration Studies. You've done that for decades, where you spread and disseminated writings of people like Kevin McDonald, John Friend, and Jared Taylor, correct?
We used to have an email service that distributed links to
those
op-ed.
to their writings. That's right.
And the New York Times and all kinds of other.
Correct. And you, so yes, I know that you're aware that you spread the writings of these three along with others, but these three are egregious examples. McDonald is the editor of a white nationalist journal. Your organization, as you said, disseminated his writings. He blamed Jewish people for the deaths of millions of people in the 20th century. John Friend, who you just said you disseminated his writings, is an infamous Holocaust denier. You spread his writings. Jared Taylor stated, quote, and I quote, this horrible quote, that when black people are left on their own, civilization disappears, end quote. That's what he said. You, a Project 2025,
we distributed only.
You only distributed, correct, I understand. I'm reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. Correct, you only disseminated writings from multiple white nationalists. Reclaiming my time, I'm going to ask you a question, sir. I'm going to ask you the next question.
Wrote about immigration.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like that time back. So you, a Project 2025 board member, you're stating you did not disseminate, for example, Mr. Taylor, Mr. McDonald, or Mr. Friend's specific quotes here, but you just continuously disseminated these white nationalists' writing. One time is a problem. When you do it over and over and over again, it's a pattern.
Texas progressive Greg Casar isn't going to let Project 2025 advisor Mark Krikorian slither his way out of this tough line of questioning.
And I know you're a Project 2025 board member. Your recent quote from a few years ago where you said, quote, Haiti is so screwed up because it wasn't colonized long enough, end quote. Is that correct? Did you say that?
I'm happy to talk about that all you want.
You did say it, that's right?
I wrote it, yes.
You said that.
Before Casar really turns up the heat and confronts Krikorian on why this is such a disgusting thing to believe, we can't help but be reminded of this.
Now, this follows Governor DeSantis' so-called Stop Woke Act, which forced the rewriting of education standards there in Florida. A controversial part of these new standards is instruction for middle school students to learn, quote, how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Florida students deserve to learn how slaves took advantage of whatever circumstances they were in to benefit themselves and the community of African descendants.
You believe this is an important topic that should be taught in schools?
So that means they develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of slavery. It was them showing resourcefulness and then using those skills. If this was a different state and the governor wasn't running for president, no one would have said anything about that. There's all the gory details are in all of those standards. And we've made African-American history a priority, and we're going to continue to do that. But we are going to speak the truth, and we're going to fight back.
Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
It's not a mistake that this false notion has gained traction within the Republican Party, only making its deployment more sinister than it already is. And Representative Casar is about to show you exactly how to take on someone who believes this lie.
Haiti was colonized as a slave plantation colony. The French colonized Haiti so that slaves would work on plantations. The end of colonization in Haiti was so that the people there would no longer be slaves. So what you're saying, and I read your quote, and anybody watching this online should go read it. What you're saying is it would have been good if they'd stayed colonized, which means that it would have been good if they had stayed enslaved by the French.
In the long run, it's one of the
in the long run,
history. No,
people shouldn't have been enslaved a single day. I'm reclaiming my time, Chairman.
And they had every right. They had every right to throw the.
What
French
you said
out.
is that you would have wanted them. Reclaiming my time. I'm talking now.
They would have been freed
you
30 years later,
you said,
and they would have been in the same situation.
You're saying you wanted 30 more years of slavery in Haiti. Reclaiming my time.
I did not.
You just said it. Honestly, it adds up. You said that they would have benefited from the French influence.
In
the French
long
were
run,
the ones.
like the people in Martinique and
reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. I'd like my time back. Please,
enslaved.
My time. This is my time, Mr. Krikorian.
They are much better off.
Honestly, this all starts to add up. This all starts to add up. You continue to do this, disseminate writings of white nationalists, try to rationalize, for example, Haiti being colonized for 30 more years. You're a Project 2025 board member. In Project 2025, I couldn't figure out why on page 583, it advocates for not allowing racial disparity or gender disparity to be considered discrimination legally anymore. In Project 2025, it eliminates a 50-year-old executive order that prohibits discrimination in federal jobs. On page 586, Project 2025 advocates for Donald Trump to allow businesses to discriminate based on religious beliefs. Before today, I couldn't understand why Trump's Project 2025 could advocate for ending civil rights protections. Why would Trump's Project 2025, I know there's crazy stuff in here, but I couldn't get why it would advocate for ending protections against discrimination. But now I understand. We have Project 2025 board members here who are the directors of groups that the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated as a hate group. We have people that are on the board that developed this who have said, for example, that Haitians would have been better off with more influence from their enslavers.
In this exchange between Casar and Krikorian, what stood out to me was how Casar's questioning was both strategic and pointed. He didn't just engage in broad rhetoric, he zeroed in on Krikorian's claims, especially around the economic impact of immigration, and effectively dissected them. What I liked most about Casar's approach was how he remained calm and precise, systematically revealing the contradictions in Krikorian's argument. This methodical approach made it hard for Krikorian to retreat into vague talking points, forcing a direct confrontation with the flaws in his stance. Casar's line of questioning wasn't just about exposing Krikorian's weakness. It was also about highlighting a deeper issue with the Republican Party's position on immigration. The fact that Krikorian was brought in as their star witness here underscores how weak and out of touch the anti-immigration arguments are. Casar demonstrated how their talking points can quickly unravel when faced with basic economic realities, leaving Republicans clinging to superficial or exaggerated claims. You know, this moment really showed the power of straightforward, evidence-based questioning and breaking down ideological arguments that just don't hold up under scrutiny.
Now, with my time remaining, which I believe should be added, Mr. Chairman, because I was interrupted and I reclaimed that time, I have questions for Ms. Gunasekaran. You served as Chief of Staff at the EPA in the Trump administration, correct?
Yes.
And you've worked with the Trump and his administration to implement your ideas in the past, correct?
Yes.
You authored Chapter 13 of Project 2025, correct?
Yes.
So you would support the ideas in Chapter 13 being implemented by the government?
I believe they are very good ideas for the next EPA.
Yes, you would support those?
Yeah.
So if Trump was president and he reached out to you and said he wanted to implement your chapter of Project 2025, would you support him in implementing that chapter? Would you say yes?
Time's expired, but you can answer that. They gave you 15 seconds.
Yeah, I don't.
No, they interrupted me for.
Well, I'm the chairman of the committee. I decide. I gave you 15
I'd
seconds.
like to appeal that ruling,
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
look, you got your time. Answer with the witness. Feel free to answer the question, and then I'm going to recognize Mr. Fry.
Yeah, I don't believe he would call me and ask to do that.
Right, but if he did, you would want him to implement. You do want him to implement the
Again,
ideas.
I don't believe that he would call and ask me to do that.
I understand. Do you want him, Mr. Chairman?
Gentlemen's
I'd like
time's
to. I make a
expired on
motion
the
to appeal the
Harris-Biden
ruling.
agenda.
I'd like to appeal the ruling, Mr. Chair.
No. Chair now recognizes.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
South
Isn't it
Carolina,
within the
Mr.
rules for me
Fry.
to appeal the ruling of the chair and ask for a vote?
It's not an appealable rule. I gave you extra time. The ranking member went a minute over. I gave the ranking member 6.5 minutes. He took 7.5 minutes.
I was interrupted.
So I've been-
Yeah, I think you guys are doing okay, Mr. Chairman. All right, we'll let it rest with that, and you'll see what happens in the next Congress.
Casar's questioning also touches on a broader point here, how Project 2025 contributors and advisors are actively trying to distance Trump from the project, even though his fingerprints are all over it. This separation is not accidental. The advisors behind Project 2025 understand that while Trump's rhetoric and policies still resonate with a core base, They are polarizing on a national level. By downplaying Trump's direct involvement, they hope to make the project more palatable to the broader public, particularly voters who may be wary of Trump but still lean toward conservative policies. You know, this strategy speaks to a deeper fear within the Republican Party. They know that Trump's brand of extremism, especially on immigration, could hurt their chances in future elections. So they're trying to repackage these same policies under a different banner. They are hoping that voters will focus on the substance rather than the source. But as Casar's questioning revealed, it's not just the messenger that is flawed. It is the message itself. No amount of distancing from Trump can hide the fact that these policies are built on disinformation and fear-mongering, aimed at dividing rather than solving real issues.